It's 40,000 years ago, and you're sitting by a fire. The light has nearly gone. The food's been eaten, the tools are mended, and there is nothing left today that has to happen. No phone, no television, no books, because nobody has invented writing yet. No music, unless somebody in this circle makes it. Just you, a handful of people you have known your entire life, and about 4 hours of darkness before anyone sleeps. So, what do you actually do? Most of us have never really asked that, because we assume the answer is nothing. We picture ancient life as one unbroken grind. Find food, don't die, collapse, repeat. With no room in it for anything as frivolous as fun. Let's start with the time itself, because there's a famous claim here that gets thrown around a lot, and it's half right. In the 1960s, the anthropologist Marshall Solins argued that hunter-gatherers were the original affluent society. Not because they had much, but because they wanted little and got it quickly. He cited fieldwork, suggesting some groups spent as little as 3 to 5 hours a day on getting food. It's a lovely idea, and you'll see it repeated everywhere, as they only worked 20 hours a week. But that number is oversold, because it usually counts the hours spent finding food, and nothing else. It doesn't count processing it, which is enormous. Pounding, grinding, cracking, drying. It doesn't count fetching water or firewood, making and repairing tools, or looking after children. Add all that in, and the working day starts looking a lot more like ours. So no, this wasn't a permanent holiday, but the useful part of the idea survives anyway. Because their time had a completely different shape to yours, there was no clock, there was no boss, bad weather stopped everything, darkness stopped everything, and there were whole stretches, evenings, storms, long winters, the hours after a big kill when everyone had eaten, where genuinely nothing had to happen. So the question isn't whether they had free time. They did. The question is what a human being does with an empty evening 40,000 years ago. Here's the first answer, and it's in a cave in southern Germany. Archaeologists found a flute. It's made from the wing bone of a griffin vulture, naturally hollow, which is exactly why you'd choose it. About 34 centimeters long, it has 5 finger holes and a carefully cut V-shaped notch to blow across. It's around 40,000 years old. Now, hold on to one detail there, because it matters more than the age. 5 finger holes, deliberately spaced. That is not somebody idly blowing across a bone. That's an instrument built to play specific notes, which means somebody already had an idea of which notes they wanted. This isn't a first attempt. It's a finished object from a tradition that already existed. And people have built replicas and played them. The spacing of those holes produces a usable scale, not random pitches, but notes that sit in recognizable relationships to each other. Somebody 40,000 years ago worked out where to put the holes so the thing would sound right, and then somebody learned to play it. Which tells you something slightly heartbreaking about the record. We have this flute because it's made of bone, and bone survives. Anything made of wood or reed or hide or gut is simply gone. Drums, rattles, whistles, strings, none of that would last 40,000 years. So the oldest instrument we've found is almost certainly not the oldest instrument. It's just the oldest one that happened to be durable. And people were singing long before any of it. Your voice doesn't fossilize at all. Second answer, they played games. Actual games with rules and pieces and someone losing. At a site called Bashur Hoyuk in southeastern Turkey, archaeologists found a set of 49 small carved stones in a grave. Sculpted into different shapes, little pyramids, bullet shapes, dogs, pigs, and painted green, red, blue, black, and white. They're about 5,000 years old, and they are unmistakably gaming pieces. Different shapes, different colors, in matched sets. That's a game with roles and sides. Egypt had Senet. Sumer had the royal game of and we have actual boards, and later even a tablet explaining some of the rules, which means somebody wrote down the rules of a board game 4,000 years ago because they were worried people would forget. And Senet turned into something bigger than a game. By the New Kingdom, the Egyptians were treating the board as a journey through the afterlife, with squares that helped or hurt you on the way. They buried boards with the dead, so they'd have one. Tutankhamun was sent off with 4 of them. That is a board game promoted to religious equipment. And older and simpler than any of it, knuckle bones. The small ankle bones of sheep and goats land on 4 distinct sides, roughly at random. They are, effectively, a dice that walks around inside an animal. People have been throwing them for a very long time. But here's the detail I keep coming back to on the Turkish pieces. They were in a grave. Somebody died, and the people burying them decided the game went in too. Third answer, and this is the one that got me. In Rouffignac Cave in France, the walls and ceilings are covered in something called finger flutings. The rock there is coated in a soft clay, and if you drag your fingers through it, you leave pale lines. There are thousands of them, in chamber after chamber. Some of it is drawings, animals, shapes. A lot of it is just lines, loops, and wandering scribbles going nowhere in particular. So researchers did something clever. Finger width scales with age. They measured the middle 3 fingers of thousands of living people, built a distribution, and then measured the flutings. And a great many of them were made by children. Not teenagers, children. The analysis points to kids around 2 to 5 years old, and one prolific little artist, reckoned to be a girl of about 5, whose lines turn up across multiple chambers. So picture that. Somewhere deep in a cave, in flickering light, an adult is holding a 2 or 3-year-old up to a soft clay ceiling. And the toddler is dragging their fingers through it, making loops, because it feels good, and it makes a mark. And they're not the only children in these caves. Hand stencils, where somebody put a palm on the rock and blue pigment around it, turn up all over the world. And a lot of them are small. Children's hands on cave walls on several continents. Whatever adults were doing down there, kids were often with them, and they left their hands on it. That's not a ritual. That's not a hunting charm. That's a small child playing. And the playing survived for tens of thousands of years because it happened to be done in mud that turned to stone. Forager children play the way children everywhere play, at being adults. Miniature bows, small digging sticks, chasing, wrestling, mock hunts. And that play isn't a break from learning the skills. It is how the skills get learned, without anyone having to teach a lesson. Now, I have to be honest about the limits here, because they're severe. Almost everything people did for fun has left no trace at all. You cannot excavate a joke. You cannot dig up a song, or a dance, or an argument about the rules, or a story someone told so well that people asked for it again. All of that, which was almost certainly the bulk of it, is completely gone. What we have left is the accidental residue, the things made of bone and stone, the marks made in the one substance that happened to harden. Everything soft, everything spoken, everything performed is missing. There's one exception worth mentioning, and it's contested. Some researchers argue that certain Aboriginal Australian stories preserve details of coastlines that were drowned by rising sea levels thousands of years ago, which, if it holds up, would mean a story accurately carried across an almost unimaginable stretch of time. Other scholars are skeptical, but it raises the possibility that the most durable thing they made wasn't bone or stone at all. It was a story, kept alive by being told. So when I say this is what ancient humans did for fun, understand what I'm actually showing you. Not the picture. A few surviving fragments at the edge of it. And that leads somewhere I didn't expect when I started looking into this. Because there's a reason it's hard to find fun in the archaeology. And it isn't only that fun rots. It's that they didn't have fun as a separate category, the way we do. We split our lives in two. There's work, and then there's the time that isn't work. And we call that fun, and we protect it. That division is recent, and it's mostly industrial. It's what a factory whistle does to a day. Their music carried knowledge. Their stories were the map and the calendar and the law. Their games taught counting and risk and how to lose gracefully in front of people you'd see every day for the rest of your life. The dancing was the thing that made a group a group. None of it was time off. It was all just being a person among people in the dark with hours to fill. Which means the flute and the painted stones and that toddler's fingers in the clay aren't evidence of ancient leisure at all. They're evidence that when a human being finally has nothing that has to be done, they make something, they play something, and they hand it to whoever is sitting next to them. 40,000 years later, that is still the entire thing. You just do it on a screen now. There's a whole series here doing the same thing to the rest of your everyday life.